Hi. Okay, so I want to go through a little exercise here called the seven whys, the seven levels of why. Actually, what is this? This is a way of trying to get to the truth of why we behave the way we do, and why we want the things that we want. So the principle of it is, suppose you want to do something, whatever it is. I want to get a promotion. Um, the question then becomes why? Why do you want a promotion? Well, I want to get more money. Why do you want to get more money? Oh, because I want to afford a better house. Why do you want to afford? Why do you want to afford a better house? And so on and so on. So it's getting us to think more about uh, things not at a superficial level, but to go deep to understand the reasons why we want what we want. And what does this have to do with writing? Well, I'll explain that. The thing about a novel project is it's a big undertaking. It's a lot of work. So, looking at a 75,000 word novel, even if you know what you're doing, that's 300 hours, maybe more or less, depending on how complicated it gets. That's a lot of commitment. And if you don't have a really good reason for why you want to do this, then I can guarantee at some point you'll throw your hands up in despair and say, I don't know why I'm doing this because it's so much work and so much effort. So you've got to find that really big reason, that great reason for keeping you at your laptop, keeping you at your journal, so that you can keep working on your novel. So the seven levels of why. Let's have a look at this. I'll give you an example of mine just to get you going. And the other thing about this too is if you want to work with someone, like if you want to pair up maybe with your partner or another writer that you know well, that works too. So you can actually have engage in a more of a discussion around it if you like. So here we go. So I say, well, I want to write a novel. Why do I want to write a novel? Well, it's because it's a dream I've had since childhood. So I'd like to do that. I'd like to fulfill that dream. So why would you like to do that? Well, let's see now. Because in grade two, I wrote my first story. It was called Bobby the Blue-Nosed Bear, and it was based off a card. It was a picture prompt of this bear with a blue nose. And so I went ahead and wrote it. And the teacher fussed about it, made a big deal about it, and put it into a cardboard book and had someone draw pictures for it. It was a big deal, and so it made me feel really good. So why did that make you feel really good? Uh, so, well, I suppose it gave me an identity. All of a sudden, I was a writer. I was someone who was different. I had something that I could do well that not everybody else in the class could. This is grade two, by the way, so everything's relative. And it made me stand out a bit from what others were doing. Next, why? Why was that important? Why would standing out be important? So I suppose it helped my ego, gave me a sense of worthiness that I felt I had value all of a sudden. And like uh, this sense of value and worth was really important to me then, and actually looking back, it's something that's carried through my entire life. So why is that important? Why is that feeling of needing self-worth or validation important? Well, here's the truth. Because I felt completely unlovable, that no matter what I did, it wasn't enough to get the love that I wanted from my parents. It wasn't enough to keep them together, and I thought I was the reason for that. So I suppose, in some way, the writing gave me an escape and allowed me to explore feelings, not verbally, because I can't do that very well, but maybe creatively through writing in this case. So why does that matter? Why? Why is that important? Because I felt shame. I felt shame and guilt that my folks weren't staying together and that I probably had something to do with it. And they're splitting up kind of threw my world upside down. So I wasn't really able to cope all that well. And I suppose I was looking for some kind of outlet, some kind of mechanism for, for coping. And why was that important? Why did I do that? And I think it's because at some fundamental level, I didn't feel worthy to accept love, to be loved, powerless to change my environment, the people around me, and what I wanted and what I needed. So perhaps seeing myself differently, perhaps seeing myself as a writer, allowed me a way to overcome part of that pain and focus and focus on the creative side of things in order to cope. I think that's what it really comes down to, and maybe in some small way, by writing a novel, that will allow me to validate what I do and what I'm worth, and hopefully allow me to experience some of those good feelings in a good way. So you can keep going on and on and on with the 7 levels of why. You can make that 10 if you want. If you can keep going, by all means keep going. But you can see pretty quickly after you get past about the 3rd why, you start to really get into those underlying reasons for doing what we do. And so for me, the notion of writing a novel really comes down to a need and a desire for validation and for acceptance. And that's a pretty strong reason for keeping at it when the times get tough. So enjoy the 7 levels of why. We'll talk to you soon.